Yeah, between maybe it's like the ID staff and Montgomery. Yesterday, kind of all over the place.
That was good option. Oh, absolutely.
I'm a worrier. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. No, honestly, it's a good thing to have around here because there are a lot of things that can go wrong. But no,
You guys always do a great job.
thank you. I told him that when we got here, he set it up. He was like, "That's too loud." I go, "That is right on where you need it."
Stuff
No, everything's good. You teetered on the edge of everything.
I'm worried about that cord from the skirt.
You should be able to pull that a little bit. There should be some slack. No, don't disconnect it.
Your Rangers cover the legs. Yes, I know.
In that
They called me.
I know. I'm more than aware. Trust me.
There's no way that we're going to I'm a little nervous. Yep.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Peggy Malone. I've worked in that building over here for 37 years. I want to thank everyone for coming here today, especially Representative Heather Boyd, Representative Gina Curry, Representative Craig Williams, Senator John Kane, Representative Carol Kazim, Mayor Ed Brown, Dr. Monica Taylor, Mayor William Denon, Mayor Stephen Roots, County Council President Christina Peterson, and Council Member Mariah Crawford. Thank you all for coming today. Never did I think Crozer would feel so desolate. I knew the health system before Prospect Medical came into our lives and created our nightmares. I can tell you because I was here. We let the wolf in the door here in Delaware County, and we can never, ever do that again. The wolf, an out-of-state, private equity-funded company, came in and ruthlessly, without hesitation, without shame, ate us all up. Prospect closed Springfield Hospital. They closed Delaware County Memorial Hospital. They shut down the detox services at Crozer, abandoning our community's most vulnerable patients. Patients and staff without their medical records, without their physicians, and now wait times and appointments over a year out. In most cases, the surrounding hospitals cannot handle our volume. We are now devastating their health systems. They did this despite all of the efforts of all of the people who stand here behind me. Governor Shapiro's office worked tirelessly behind the scenes to save our health system. The Pennsylvania Attorney General's office took bold actions on behalf of our health system. The Delaware County delegation and Delaware County Council worked hand in hand with us every step of the way to stop corporate looters. Still, our health system closed because that was always Prospect's plan, to drain every last cent and every drop of blood from our health system before cutting and running back to California. It was immoral, it was devastating, and it was legal. Think about that for a minute. It was legal. As healthcare providers, we take an oath to do no harm. Nurses, techs, paramedics, professionals, physicians, pharmacists, chaplains, everyone who works within the walls of a hospital are committed to the well-being of the patients who walk through those hospital doors. What happens when harm is the business model of your health system? I can tell you what happens. Shooting victims die. Mothers give births at places far outside their community limits, if they make it there. Caregivers are abandoned. Behavioral health patients wander the streets. Communities suffer. That's why we have to stop this before private equity ever does this to any other health system. Before Crozer, there was Hahnemann, and more recently, Sharon Regional Medical Center. Each closure left devastation wherever they were. And we cannot ever let this legally happen again. We must find a way to restore our health system and return to our care to our patients and jobs to our staff, all of whom have stayed. They stayed the course. They trusted us, and they trusted our local government and our leaders. to do no harm. Thank you.
Hello, and thank you to the many people who have gathered here today. My name is Dr. Max Cooper, and until recently I've been an ER doctor here at Crozer. I've worked here for 7+ years, and during that time I've borne daily witness to the sorts of miracles that this place can produce. I've seen hearts restarted, and I've seen gunshot victims resuscitated. This is a place where miracles happen. And this is a place where miracles should happen still. Except that Prospect Medical Holding, running the private equity playbook, ran our hospital into the ground, and we're closed. And just a day after we closed to trauma, just a block from where we stand today, a young man was shot in the chest. And he should have been seen by my partners and I in the emergency department just over my shoulder. But because we were closed, EMS had to transport him 30 minutes away to Lankenau Hospital. And 20 minutes into that trip, his heart stopped, and he died. And we cannot let this catastrophe happen again. We must prevent the next Crozer. We must prevent private equity from raiding Pennsylvania hospitals. We must have additional tools at our disposal to prevent this from happening again. And that's why I'm supporting HB 1460 and SB 322 to give our AG additional oversight capacity to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And I hope you'll all join me in supporting those bills. Thank you. Very happy to turn it over to Governor Shapiro.
Thank you, Doctor. We are here today because Crozer was a critically important healthcare system right here in Delaware County. A healthcare system that has been forced to close its doors and stop serving its patients because of the greed and mismanagement of the private equity firm. The team of healthcare providers who worked here, well, they delivered life-saving, quality healthcare to the people who lived in this community. They held up their end of the bargain. People like Peggy Malone did it for nearly 4 decades. As a nurse, Dr. Cooper did it for almost a decade. They did their part. They served their community and their patients. Unfortunately, this community and the people who worked here and the patients who received quality health care here, well, they're now suffering the cost of one company's greed. Prospect Medical Holdings was the for-profit entity that owned Crozer. They're what's known as a private equity firm. Let me explain what a private equity firm does in real simple terms. They raise capital from wealthy individuals or wealthy institutions. They use that money to go around and buy up different companies. Then they structure those companies with a single purpose in mind, to turn a profit. And then they quickly sell those companies, usually somewhere between 2 and 6 years. In the healthcare space, they buy up hospitals and healthcare facilities, line their own pockets by stripping money and resources from those facilities, and in turn, they compromise healthcare. Then in many cases, they skip town, leaving taxpayers to hold the bag in communities without care, communities without services that they so desperately need. Because remember, the singular goal of a private equity firm is to turn a profit, not to deliver quality care, not to care about the community. That is exactly what Prospect did to Crozer and to the people of the city of Chester in Delaware County. After pulling as much money as they could out of this community, Prospect then protected themselves and the profits they made by filing for bankruptcy and closing both Taylor Hospital and Crozer-Chester Medical Center. And if you look back over the last 3 years, Prospect has closed 4 hospitals in Delaware County. Like I said, their motive is to make a quick profit, nothing more. The closure here is going to hurt real people, Pennsylvanians who work hard to try and make sure they can take care of themselves and their families. They just want to have peace of mind that they've got a doctor in their community, a caring nurse in their community, ready to take care of their health care needs too. Now that Crozer has closed, it's about a 30-minute drive to the next closest hospital. But for many people here in Delco, it's even further. Because a whole lot of folks don't have a car to be able to drive those 30 minutes. And even for those who do, 30 minutes is way too long to be able to access health care in a time of crisis. Unfortunately, this challenge isn't just reserved for the good people of Delaware County. Across Pennsylvania, especially in some of the most rural parts of our Commonwealth, private equity is stripping money out of our hospitals and healthcare systems with total disregard for the communities who rely on them. In Mercer County, on the other side of Pennsylvania, Sharon Regional Medical Center was forced to close its doors as a result of another private equity owner, Stewart Healthcare, who also protected themselves by filing for bankruptcy. Fortunately, they're back open now under new owners. They should have never closed in the first place. I am done letting private equity wreak havoc on our healthcare system, wreak havoc on our communities, treating our hospitals like a piggy bank that they can drain and then smash on the floor. Those days are over. The time for action is right now. It is long past time to stand up for our local hospitals and nursing facilities and put in place real safeguards against private equity. In my budget address back in February. And I came here today to tell you how grateful I am to Representative Borowski and Senator Carney for their leadership on this issue. They join us here today, and you'll hear from them in a moment. They have now sponsored the Health System Protection Act in the House and Senate, which will take 2 concrete steps, 2 significant protections, and put them in place in our healthcare system. First, it would stop what's known as these harmful leaseback arrangements, where private equity firms force hospitals to literally sell off the land that those hospitals are built on. And then they rent those spaces back at ridiculously high prices. What they're really doing with that arrangement is sucking a whole bunch of money out of the healthcare system and putting it back in their private equity pockets. That's what happened right here at Crozer. This legislation would ban that practice across Pennsylvania. The second key component of this legislation is to empower the Office of Attorney General to review and, if necessary, block or place conditions on sales involving healthcare institutions to for-profit entities like Prospect. This would give the Attorney General of Pennsylvania more power to protect Pennsylvania communities and prevent them from being hurt by companies just looking to line their own pockets. Now, y'all know I served as Attorney General for 6 years in this Commonwealth. I wish I had that kind of power when I was Attorney General, to be able to protect communities like Delaware County from entities like Prospect. That bill was introduced in Harrisburg this week, and I hope lawmakers come together, Democrat and Republican, like the group we have assembled here today, and quickly pass this much-needed legislation, put it on my desk, and I will sign it into law. I will sign it into law. This is common sense, and I think it is bipartisan as well. This is an issue that's hurting urban, rural, and suburban communities in every part of our Commonwealth, from here in Delco, as I said, all the way out to Mercer County. I know the Delco delegation cares a great deal about this, and so do legislators from rural Mercer County. Senator Michelle Brooks, a Republican who represents that community, well, she wants to get something done on this too. So let's do what we've done many times over the last couple of years. Let's come together, Democrats and Republicans, and solve problems that we know exist in our community. Push back on those powerful interests who want to stop reform and come together to get stuff done. Delco got screwed by Prospect. So I'm here today to also announce some concrete steps my administration is taking to help ease some small portion of the pain that I know this community is feeling. First, the Pennsylvania Department of Labor and Industry has been proactively working to help connect the more than 3,000 workers who lost their jobs to employment resources that exist in this Commonwealth. After the closure was announced, L&I and the local Workforce Development Board here in Delco hosted 10 rapid response meetings for impacted workers in early May, connecting them with career resources and information on applying for unemployment, searching for a job, and accessing PA Career Link services, enrolling them in health insurance, and much, much more. On Tuesday, L&I and the leadership of Secretary Walker hosted a job fair for more than 1,000 Crozer employees at Subaru Park, connecting them with more than 200 employers in the region. They also set up a transition center, an office right here in Chester, where former Crozer employees can walk in to get those same resources. And if you can't make it down here, we've set up resources online for folks to access. Head on over to pa.gov/Crozer employees, and you can get access to all of the same supports that you can get by walking in the door. We're not alone in this work in my administration. I want to say a special thanks to your local representative, Carol Kazim, as well as your local Senator, John Kane, who I know have been working to connect community members to resources, get folks out to events where they can get the support they need. Second, the Commonwealth, in coordination with the Delaware County Legislative Delegation, is putting forward $1 million to ensure that EMS services remain available in Delco following these closures, because the people of Delaware County don't deserve to have their safety compromised and their peace of mind stripped away because of Prospect's greed. I know that county leaders, including Dr. Monica Taylor, have been working hard to put a plan in place to ensure EMS services continue to operate. Along with the Delaware County Legislative Delegation, we are proud to help make sure that is a reality. I hope you will take a moment, even in these tough times, even in these times of anguish, to appreciate the fact that you have a Delaware County Legislative Delegation that works incredibly hard, that works together, that's focused on the good people of this county. We've been talking about these issues for more than a year. They've been on the front lines of doing this work, and they have pressed our administration and anyone else to make sure that they could bring resources home to this community. You're blessed to have these representatives here. They know that today is an important step. Passing the bill is going to be a critically important step, and they, along with my administration, are never going to walk away from this community that I know is reeling right now and in need. I need to say a special thanks to the leader of the delegation, Representative Kruger, together with Speaker McClinton and the entire Delco delegation. They've been working incredibly hard on this, and they deserve a round of applause for their hard work. We appreciate all of it. They've not only been deeply engaged in this process, they've not only been advocating for this community and will continue to advocate for this community in our budget, but they are also working to hold Prospect accountable. You are truly fortunate to have them all on your side. Now listen, we need to be clear. We know who did this. Prospect did this, plain and simple. And they didn't have to do this. They stripped so much money out of this health system that they could no longer even make payroll. The great nurses and doctors and medical staff and others who poured their heart and soul into this hospital. But the thing is, that money didn't just vanish into thin air. That money that they sucked out of this institution, well, it is lining the pockets of those executives at Prospect. Their ill-gotten gains deserves greater scrutiny. They need to look into what they're doing with that money, how they got it, and what their plans are for the future. The Commonwealth, during this time, has put in more than $15 million to try and keep Crozer open. We did that over just the last 7 months. And while we stayed at the negotiating table trying to find a long-term solution to ensure quality health care in Delaware County, unfortunately, Prospect didn't have the same aim. We worked together, my administration, the Attorney General's office, the Delaware County Legislative Delegation, your county officials, to work in good faith, to create time and space to come up with a solution. Sadly, even as we spent that time and that money, Prospect didn't reciprocate. They did not act in good faith. We can't allow these for-profit companies to continue to pay themselves out of the hospital's coffers, and turn the lights out, close the doors when they can't loot anymore. I'm calling on our General Assembly, Republican and Democrat alike, to come together and to fix this. Pass this bill. Get greed of private equity out of our healthcare system. Let's come together now to protect our communities, our patients, our hospitals, and our employees, and make sure that no other community has to go through what Delco has endured. Let's do everything we can to support the incredible healthcare workers here at Crozer and the community at large here in Delco. I know that there is a long road ahead. Your Delaware County delegation will not leave your side. My administration will not leave your side. We will get through this. We will reform our laws. We will invest in this community, and we will work hard to deliver health care access to Pennsylvanians who need it most. Always know I've got your back, and we're going to continue to work hard together on this. We've had a lot of partners in this work, and I want to bring up now a partner here in Delaware County who I've known for many, many years. Someone with a healthcare background who cares deeply about this community, and we've worked closely with throughout this process. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce Dr. Monica Taylor, the head of Delaware County Council. Dr. Taylor.
Thank you, Governor Shapiro, for being here today, and thank you for continuing to stand with us in this fight. My name is Dr. Monica Taylor, Chair of Delaware County Council, and I'm here on behalf of 576,000 residents of Delaware County. 576,000 people who did not all use Crozer-Chester Medical Center or Taylor Hospital. 576,000 people who did not all know every detail of healthcare policy or the inner workings of corporate finance, but all of whom are victims of private equity and what it did here in Delaware County. This is a simple story about greed. Prospect Medical Holdings came to town, bought Crozer, broke our healthcare system, and paid themselves hundreds of millions of dollars to do it. Not long ago, 576,000 people once had 6 great hospitals to care for their families and loved ones. Now they have just 2. If there's one thing I want you to understand, it's this. It doesn't have to be this way. Private equity has no place in healthcare. But let's be clear about something. Private equity doesn't belong anywhere else either. Governor Shapiro has been a leader in fighting private equity for more than a decade. But when private equity-backed cartel came to town, destroyed safety net hospitals, and they got rich doing it, something drastic needs to change. Prospect may have turned their back on our community, but Delaware County government and our delegation never will. Here in Delco, we've been wrapping our arms around our brothers and sisters in the Crozer workforce who need new opportunities. We've been working around the clock to support patients and residents and to make sure our other providers can do their best to care for our folks that need it. In partnership with the governor's team, on Tuesday, we brought more than 200 employers together to support over 1,000 job seekers from the former Crozer staff. That was just one event, and we're nowhere near done. We're going to reimagine healthcare in Delaware County and build a better future. Going forward, we strongly support Governor Shapiro and our Delco delegation as we all work to rebuild the healthcare landscape here in Delaware County. And as we fight to protect our communities from private equity so that what happened here never happens again in Pennsylvania. Thank you, everyone. And with that, I would like to introduce Senator Carney to talk a little bit about all the amazing work that our Delco delegation is doing in Harrisburg.
Good morning. Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Thank you, Max. And thank you, Governor Shapiro, for standing with us in this fight and demonstrating the leadership that we need to pass new laws to protect our healthcare system from corporate greed. I want to mention that Senator Amanda Cappelletti has joined us as well. I think the senator fell victim to the poor traffic conditions in Delaware County, which is part of what we're talking about. I've been working for years in Harrisburg on legislation to rein in corporate abuses in our hospitals and healthcare facilities. And I got to say, ever since Governor Shapiro spoke on the problem of private equity in our healthcare systems during his budget address in February, the whole tone of the conversation has changed. And both parties are now taking it more seriously than ever before. This is good news. That is leadership in action, and it's the kind of leadership that gets stuff done. And it's high time to get this legislation done. In the spring of 2022, when Crozer's sale to Christiana fell apart, the Delaware County delegation came together to announce a package of legislation to get private equity and Wall Street profiteers out of our hospitals. We introduced this legislation again in 2023 with Representative Lisa Borowski, who steered the bill through an evenly divided House and into the Senate last year. Notice it hasn't passed yet. Now, in this third legislative session, we're closer than ever to getting a bill to the governor's desk. Rural and urban Pennsylvanians alike have seen their hospitals closed by private equity, seen full hospitals converted to outpatient clinics, seen the quality of care go down and medical bills go up. Republicans and Democrats alike know we can't put reform off any further. It's high time we treat our healthcare workers and our patients with the respect, the dignity, and the care that they deserve. When private equity firms see our hospitals, well, they see our dollar signs. They see organizations they can burden with debt. They see real estate they can sell off. They see health insurers they can bilk for more cash. And they see state medical assistance programs they can extort. They see labor they can overwork and squeeze. That is the private equity playbook. But our community healthcare facilities are not just numbers on some finance guy's spreadsheets. They're the lifeblood of our community. Hospitals and other healthcare facilities aren't just like any other business. They are institutions of public interest. And it's time we make it abundantly clear to everyone looking to make a buck off our patients and our healthcare heroes. Our bill will allow the Pennsylvania Attorney General to block
healthcare deals that are against the public interest. When a for-profit hospital owner wants to take out an unnecessary loan to pay themselves dividends, our legislation will let the Attorney General call out their BS in court. When a private equity firm wants to cash in on the real estate of a nursing home, our legislation will allow the Attorney General, give him the power to block it. And whenever firms like Leonard Green and Partners want to sell off their ownership in the Crozers of Pennsylvania for pennies and leave our communities with a tab, our legislation will stop them. This is America. And most folks don't have a problem with doing good and doing well. But profits should be earned. They should not be taken, especially when it comes to our health. This is the balance that our legislation seeks to restore in our healthcare system. I'm eager to get back to Harrisburg, talking to the legislators about our bill. We've been having great conversations with the Attorney General, David Sunday, and we're going to get some votes on the board. The time is now. The time is now to get this done. Thank you. Now I'd like to bring up our partner in this, Representative Lisa Borowski.
Good morning, and thank you, Senator Carney, so much for your trust in me as a fledgling legislator to take this really important legislation that means so much not only to Delaware County, but to the rest of our communities across the Commonwealth. Good morning, and thank you, Governor Shapiro, for coming to Delaware County and for recognizing the gravity of this situation and for all the time and effort you and your administration dedicated to ensuring access to quality health care for our communities. I stand here today, Lisa Borowski. I'm the daughter of a physician and a nurse. I spent 30 years working in healthcare for what is now Trinity Health and Jefferson Einstein. But most importantly, 28 years ago, I had my first son here at Crozer Health. And the care and compassion that the staff showed me as a fledgling mother who had no idea what she was doing will never be forgotten. So this place means a lot to me, and it is devastating to stand here in front of a shuttered Crozer Hospital because of one thing: corporate greed. Prospect Health decided endangering the lives of nearly 500,000 children and adults was a good way to generate personal wealth for a handful of executives and shareholders. Now, 2,651 people are out of a job, and hundreds of thousands of Delaware County residents have to travel 30 minutes or more to access health care. I represent Riddle Hospital, and that hospital is overwhelmed. The time to wait in an emergency department at Riddle is exceeding hours, and people are struggling to get the care that they need. Emergency departments are bursting at the seams across the county, and not just here, but also in Chester County and Delaware, where people are also being transported. And our communities are scrambling to secure EMS services. As someone who worked in healthcare for 30 years, in my opinion, for-profit and healthcare is an oxymoron. My legislation with Senator Carney, House Bill 1460, would grant the Attorney General's office more oversight when private equity or for-profit organizations seek a merger or an acquisition of a healthcare system. The Health System Protection Act will provide the Attorney General with the tools needed to prevent bad actors from entering Pennsylvania's healthcare system. This legislation also bans harmful sale-leaseback agreements. In Prospect's case, this was part of a $1.55 billion deal on facilities in 3 different states where they sold the Crozer Health System land and then required the hospitals to pay rent on the buildings they had previously owned. Much of that money from the sale delivered an over $400 million dividend to Prospect owners and shareholders. This is a pivotal moment for us as lawmakers, elected by the people to represent their interests. How we choose to respond to the crisis private equity firms are inflicting in our healthcare system will speak volumes to Pennsylvanians about our courage to do what is right. And I'm grateful to Governor Shapiro for speaking up and leading the charge. And it is not just Delco residents who depend on us to step up. This is happening in communities across the Commonwealth. creating swaths of barren healthcare deserts. And my good friend Gina Curry knows a lot about that. This is our moment to show Pennsylvanians we won't relent until we've done everything it takes to protect their access to health care. Circumstances have changed significantly since the House passed the bill the first time. I am optimistic the legislature will act together to get these protections in place before another health system is allowed to crumble. Thank you, and it's now my honor to introduce my colleague from the 161st, Representative Leanne Kruger.
So we stand today here in Upland Borough with the city of Chester across the street after what we have been fighting against for years finally happened. Prospect closed our hospitals. And we know this didn't happen overnight. My colleagues and I have been here on the front lines with these nurses and doctors and paramedics for years, fighting Prospect during the paramedic when they weren't getting the materials they needed to keep them safe, calling when ER docs were telling us they had stopped paying the vendor who picked up the rape kits, calling when the paramedics told us that their apparatus was in the shop because they had stopped paying the mechanics. Prospect has been divesting in our healthcare system for years while pulling out every bit of profit they could. And we, as a delegation, county council, and the local electeds that are here today in solidarity with us, have fought every step of the way, side by side by side, and yet they seem to have won. But Rep. Borowski's bill, which we did pass out of the House last session, is slated for a vote the first week of June when we go back to the Capitol. And this time, we will pass it to the House, our colleagues will pass it to the Senate, our governor and hopefully our Attorney General will work together to get that legislation signed into law so that what happened here in Delaware County will never happen in Pennsylvania again. And yet we're left with the aftermath. In the past few weeks since the closure, my staff have helped to triage patients, to make sure that they landed in a safe place despite Prospect having plans to send them home. We have helped Crozer employees file for unemployment. We have fought with an online system that doesn't work for our seniors to try to get folks their medical records so that their surgery could still happen on time. And so we continue to ask the Attorney General, who's fighting for us in bankruptcy court in Texas, and the judge, who is the only person right now who's got the ability to hold Prospect accountable, to continue to pay attention to what's happening here on the ground, to do everything they can to claw back the money that we have invested into this system, and to hopefully open a criminal investigation so these guys are truly held accountable. Thank you. And now we'll go back to Governor Shapiro for questions.
We got time for a few questions.
Governor, you said that you think that Prospect deserves greater scrutiny, their wealth. Are you supportive of criminal charges against the members of the board and Prospect?
That's a question for Attorney General.
You've brought legal claims against entities the Attorney General would not bring them against. You could do it here. Could you not?
Power to bring criminal charges. The Attorney General does, or a district attorney does.
Could you
Of course, our federal.
Could you urge, and have you urged the Attorney General and district attorneys to bring a criminal claim against Prospect?
Well, first off, I'm obviously not going to get into my private conversations with the Attorney General. I should note that we've worked for months together on this. Our offices have worked in common purpose to see what we can do to keep the doors open. And the Attorney General has been working with us on this legislation. And I hope that going forward, we will not only pass this legislation in order to stop something like this from happening anywhere else, but that there will be real accountability in the case of Prospect and what they did here.
But does accountability include criminal charges in your view? Do you support it?
That is a question for the Attorney General.
Governor, I do have a question on the bill. The bill that was introduced last session was broader and included nonprofits as
Please.
Get oversight from the Attorney General. Had proposed it last year, obviously didn't pass the Senate.
For Senator who's written the bill to comment on that.
So last year, your bill also included oversight for the Attorney General of nonprofit hospitals. It was just a broader bill. This year, it's just private equity. I'm curious why that change was made.
Well, so we have been working, trying to figure out why it didn't go through the Senate last year when we wanted it to. There are, as you can imagine, a lot of fairly powerful interests at work here, including the hospital system, who opposed the bill last year. So we've been working very hard to get to the point where we can get them through. So I will say that the bill as it stands now is not necessarily the bill we're going to pass. And a lot of these questions are still, in particular the one about nonprofits and for-profits, is still very much up in the air. And it's going to be a question of how we can actually navigate the next few months politically to get to a point where we can pass it.
And I'll just ask, closures and mergers, they happen in nonprofits as well. It's not just private equity. Would you prefer that to be in the bill?
I understand that. If it were up to me, yes, it would be in the bill. But again, we have to figure out the politics on this to try to get to a point where the very good can't stand in the way of the perfect necessarily. And sometimes we have to take steps on these things. But that's kind of where we are.
Senator, also on the bill, what criteria would you expect the Attorney General to use to determine if a transaction is harmful to public interest?
Well, it's interesting because we've gone back and forth on this as well. We had originally proposed about 13 or 14 steps trying to define what the public interest really means, because that's an understandable concept we have. We want to understand exactly what the bill is going to prevent and what it's not. To the point of negotiation back and forth, basically, the reason for bringing the Attorney General in instead of the Department of Health on this is that the Attorney General has the tools and they have the personnel who are used to dealing with complex business arrangements. They can understand how we're able to make it do it. Again, the bills are a little fluid right now, and whether that definition winds up in or gets taken out is something that we're going to continue to argue.
Governor, this community needs your help right now. Not only do we need there are hundreds of thousands of people without care, without critical health care. There's been calls for you to take this facility over by eminent domain. Can you do something to provide care here? There are 4 hospitals gone. In 3 years, we need your help. What can we do beyond legislation in 3 years?
We need legislation to ensure this doesn't happen in the future. We need to invest dollars, as I'm here today to announce, to continue to support emergency services. We need to make sure that the employees here have access to the benefits that they've earned and the prospect of finding new employment. And we're going to continue to work, as we have been for more than a year, with other surrounding healthcare institutions in this region and across the country to see what might be able to come of the institution behind us, to see if there is a possibility to get it reopened and provide health care in this community. I'm going to continue to work hard to see if we can get that done.
Hours and hours. Half hours, 45 minutes. This community doesn't have access to be able to get these hospitals at a critical time. You know, have a heart attack or get shot.
Yes.
I mean, if this happened in Montgomery County, would you be doing the same thing?
Yes. What I'm trying to do is to ensure this doesn't happen again. That the people who are in that facility get the help that they need. That we hold folks accountable. And that we work hard to see what we can do to get this hospital reopened and the other hospitals reopened to provide health care. I talked about how we can't allow this to be a healthcare desert. We need to make sure that we can continue to have access. We need to make sure that our EMS are funded to be able to get folks the care that they need. I'm deeply concerned about this community. I'm deeply concerned about the rural communities that suffered at the hands of private equity. We're going to continue to do everything in our power to address it.
Governor, it has the feel, though, of just way too late. That building's closed. These employees are gone. As the doctor said, somebody was shot in the chest and died on his way to the hospital. It seems too late and possibly ineffective.
Yes, and the finger that you're pointing should be pointed at private equity. That's why we're here today, to make sure something like this can't happen again. legislation that is being considered. And there was a reference made to one of the lobbying groups, the so-called Hospital Association in Pennsylvania. I'll be damned if I'm going to let lobbyists stymie this effort. We got to put the people before powerful interests in Pennsylvania. Stand up to those who have stopped the progress and get this done. And so you can stop pointing fingers at the folks who have been working their tails off to try and save this hospital and start pointing them at the people that raided this community and made a profit off the backs of the good people of Delaware County.
Governor, we got CBS 3.
Governor, you mentioned that private equity should not own hospitals, should own hospitals.
I'm sorry, I just didn't hear your question.
You mentioned that private equity should not own hospitals, should own hospitals.
I think we see a lot of examples of nonprofit entities running hospitals really well in Pennsylvania. There are exceptions to that, certainly, but we've got to make sure that we take, as Senator Carney, I think, said in his comments, the profit-making motive out of the decisions that are made in buildings like that. Instead, put patients first, put people first, put the nurses and the docs and the staff first, instead of just thinking, how do we make a buck off of their backs? In addition to that, entities like Prospect and private equity have been draining much-needed resources from Medicaid and other publicly funded healthcare funds. We've got to ensure that they no longer use those government funds as piggybacks for their work, and there is far less of that happening with nonprofit entities who manage healthcare institutions across this region and across this area. It's happening everywhere. I mean, look, I'm not going to get into, first off, I haven't read the book. I don't know what they're citing. I can tell you that I was very frank with the president during his campaign about what I saw were some of the shortcomings of his campaign. I was very honest with him in a private setting about it. All right? Thank you all very much. Look, we have a challenge with delivering primary care in urban areas and in rural areas as well. It's one of the reasons why in my budget this year, which we are considering right now, we incentivize, from a workforce perspective, getting more primary care, more nurses into communities that are healthcare deserts. I hope that lawmakers either pass my proposals or amend them to make them even stronger and invest more dollars into that. We've got to incentivize primary care, nursing, behavioral health in these urban and rural areas where we're seeing a lack thereof.
Governor, do you think...
Let me get a different poll.
Sure.
Are you guys like on the same team?
We're blood relatives, actually. He's the better-looking one, Governor.
The stronger Philly accent, too. But anyway, Governor,
The whole Delco accent.
Northeast Philly, but
You and the Pope.
yes. But Governor, though, are there other hospitals right now in Pennsylvania that are also owned by private equity, and if so, how many?
There are. We can give you a full accounting of that. I'm concerned about the quality of care in those communities. I'm concerned about our rural hospitals, especially, that are teetering on the edge. Those owned by private equity, and even some that aren't, particularly with the Medicaid cuts that are being contemplated in Washington. So I'm very, very worried.
So just one quick follow-up with you. So let's say this legislation becomes law. What happens to those other private equities that own those
It
hospitals?
will be prospective, not retroactive.
Okay, so they will still maintain, they will still hold.
They will. Again, I mean, I think to Senator Carney's point, let's see what the final result of this legislation would be. You couldn't go back and undo a transaction legally that took place, but whether or not the Attorney General gets additional authority as part of this legislation to manage healthcare institutions that are currently owned by private equity, that remains to be seen.
Governor, you came here earlier in the year and absolutely besieged larger healthcare institutions.
I would, but I think it's important to note, Senator Carney, which is we've got a divided government. And we've got a government where people have different views on different issues. So we're never going to let the perfect be the enemy if possible, and we're always going to strive to solve problems. We've done that on pharmacy benefit manager, PBM reform last year. We've done that when we decoupled state police funding from funding for roads and bridges. We did that when we heard the call of seniors over 30 years and finally passed a property tax cut for them. We did that when we saw courts rule our educational system unconstitutional. We came together now, 2 budgets in a row, make historic investments in education and change our funding formula, drive the dollars out to the districts that need it most. I share that with you because we know how to come together and solve problems. Solving problems requires compromise. I want to have a strong bill, a bill that protects communities from the kind of profit-seeking motives that we saw here in Delaware County. But I'm never going to let the perfect be the enemy of the possible.
Governor, just
All right, guys, thanks so much.
one couple more.
Look, last question about the cuts to Medicaid. I think we all got to be really locked in on this issue. This is a serious issue, and will be a crisis for Pennsylvania should our federal representatives pass what is being considered in Washington. Understand Medicaid is funded in part with federal dollars, roughly $30 billion, and in part with state dollars, roughly $20 billion. And then it's administered in our Commonwealth. They're talking in D.C. Now, who the hell knows what they'll do at the end of the day or what the final bill will be. But as they're talking now, they'll be knocking about 750,000 Pennsylvanians off of Medicaid. They will trim benefits for those that remain, and understand there are 3.1 million Pennsylvanians who receive their health care coverage through Medicaid. I'm talking about people who are disabled. I'm talking about seniors, babies, and others who are working, and just can't make enough money to be able to access private health insurance elsewhere. So we're talking about knocking 750,000 people off that health care, trimming the benefits for others. By the way, to pay for a tax cut for those at the highest income brackets in D.C. And that, to me, is something that is really, really troubling and would have a devastating impact on people in Pennsylvania. Now, let's talk about hospitals. Hospitals, especially our rural hospitals and some of our urban hospitals, make a considerable amount of their dollars from patients who enter their ERs, enter their medical exam rooms, being covered by Medicaid. Some of these rural hospitals, including one I was just at in Northern Tier recently, about 60% of their revenues come from Medicaid, and they're operating on a less than 1% margin. So if you go trim $3, $4, $5, $6 billion at the state share of Medicaid, you're not only knocking people off of their health care, you are determining that these rural hospitals, these hospitals that rely so much on Medicaid, will have to shutter as well, and you're exacerbating the healthcare crisis that's brewing in our Commonwealth. So to every federal representative out there, I think you need to take a long, hard look at this bill and a long, hard look at the hundreds of thousands of people you're going to knock off of Medicaid and the hospitals you are going to have to shutter as a result of your desire to deliver a tax cut for those at the highest income level. That is not sound policy. This will devastate Pennsylvania and many other states, and I hope our federal elected officials do the right thing and oppose these Medicaid cuts. Thank you all very much.